Odin and Ogou Feray, they may seem very different to most people. Odin being in the Asatru tradition, the Reconstructionist religion of the ancient European gods, and the Loa, the spirit of Ogou Feray in the Vodou tradition. Now, these two beings, Odin being a god, and Ogou being a Loa, a spirit, they may seem like they're very different. But in the tradition of Asatru for Odin, and in the tradition of Ogou Feray in Vodou, uh, they represent very similar facets. They represent very similar equivalencies to being a warrior and what a warrior is in relation to us as human beings. Now, the first thing that we can compare is Odin is a warrior god and Ogou Feray is a warrior spirit. Uh, Odin is a warrior god in the sense that he basically draws warriors to him. Their souls after they die who worship him, who see him as the god on high. Odin draws them to him and draws their essence so that when he has to fight the last battle against Chaos, against the Jotun, against the Hela, against the fire giants and the frost giants, when he has to fight that battle at the end of the universe, warrior spirits, warrior souls will fight with him. And it is said that Odin will lose, even with all the human beings who are worthy of being called warrior. Even with all the ones who devote themselves to Odin and are basically granted access to his hall in Valhalla, they will still lose. He will still lose. And he will lose because that is what needs to happen in order for a new universe to begin. In order for a new creation to happen, he must lose. So why would warriors choose to side with a god who will lose? Who will basically grant them a defeat, all of them a defeat. And the answer is complicated. The only piece of the answer I can say is that, or I can even imagine, is that if Odin knows he must lose eventually, because he tries to push back the day of Ragnarok a day, another day, a century, a millennia, it doesn't matter. He tries to push back more and more. And the warriors he gathers are willing to lose with him. And they're willing to lose on the side of preservation. Odin accepts warriors who are willing to lose on the side of preservation and sacrifice themselves for a grander undertaking of loss in this universe, but for the creation of another. Now, the warrior spirit in Ogou Feray is very different. It doesn't have to do with losing in the ultimate sense, and it doesn't have to do with a macrocosmic or universal battle. It has to do with being honorable in and of yourself, being someone who can stand on your own, somebody who can advance upon the enemy, even if it's not literally, even if it's just in life, and cast chains around their ability, cast chains around their person, and then break one's own chains and free one's own strength. And that's the only way I can really describe Ogou Feray in the warrior spirit way. It's very allegorical, but that's the only way I can really explain what it means to be a devotee of Ogou Feray in terms of a warrior spirit. The second topic we could talk about for both Odin and Ogou Feray is first Odin, giver of victory and bringer of demise. Now, it is said if you're a devotee of Odin, he will give you victory, but he will also be the knife that stabs you in the back. He will grant you the victories that you want so badly, but when it is your time to come, when your destiny ends, when your destiny is the period on your life, is the ending statement on your life, Odin will come himself, if you're a devotee of Odin, to end your life. He will bludgeon you to death. He will stab you in the back or he will suffocate you. Something like this. He will end your life just as he gave you victory so many times before. And he's willing to do that himself because, honestly, Odin is devoted to you if you're a devotee of him. And he's devoted to you in the sense that he will grant you a defeat by a god. I mean, what else could we ask of the universe than to be defeated by a god? Not old age, not another human being, but by a god. And Odin is willing to give us that mercy, to be granted death by a god. And it may seem cruel of Odin to strike down his devotee after giving him all these victories, or after being the focus of devotee's attention. But in truth, I mean, how else would you like to go? I mean, the death at the hand of your god, that is much better than going in any other way I can think of. Alright, and Maker and Breaker of Chains, Ogou Feray. I touched on this previously a little bit. And Maker and Breaker of Chains, what does that mean exactly? In the time of the slave masters on Haiti, at Haiti, one of the two, the French and the Spanish basically destroyed and decimated the native population that weren't slaves from Africa, to the point where their lineages basically don't exist anymore. And the French afterwards, who had many African slaves, they kept a very harsh climate and work environment for the African slaves. They forced so many things onto the African slaves and worked them so hard. Their chains weren't just the chains of slavery, they were the chains of existence. Every single second that the African slaves were there was just enveloped by pain. And pain was enforced on them in so many different ways that death would be better than life by 1,000 times. The French used the Africans as the Spanish used the natives. They worked so many of them to death. They worked so many of them to death that they started to actually decide to not work them as hard because their slaves that they had bought were dying. And so they developed a system to where they would work them just enough to where they wouldn't die, but also still produce as much as they could. And this was a terrible system. And Ogou Feray is said to both make those chains that were cast on the slaves, cast on the Africans, but also break them. He has the power to put people through ordeals, like slavery. But also, when they have learned and developed enough to break those chains of slavery. And this is just my understanding of Ogou Feray. And not everybody survives the ordeal. When you deal with Ogou Feray as a warrior, not only just the physical warrior where you slash or shoot, I'm talking about as a spiritual warrior, he will put you through ordeals. You will feel pain, you will hate Ogou Feray. But on the other side, when you reach that other side to where you go through the ordeals that he's put you through, he will break chains that you had before you ever met him. He will break chains that are spiritual, that are human. He will help you break those chains and become something that is beyond what you could have ever imagined before you encountered any spiritual path. And that's how Ogou Feray breaks your chains. He will put you through the ordeal and place you in chains, but he will break them at the same time. That's hard to understand, but it's what Ogou Feray does. Now, the third category for Odin is cannot be made to do anything, and that's the masculine principle. And it's the same for Ogou Feray, cannot be made to do anything. It's a masculine principle. Both of these principles are masculine in the same way, obviously. You can't force Odin to do anything that he doesn't want to do for you. And you can't force Ogou Feray to do anything that he doesn't want to do for you. there are spirits, demons, angels, even gods that you can force to do things if you know the right formula, the right words to say, the right sacrifice to commit. But you can't force Odin or Ogou Feray to do anything for you if they don't want to. If they don't want to do anything for you, then nothing will be done for you by them. That period, point blank. And this is the very masculine principle that is a part of them both. They're not creationary. They are masculine and preservative. They will preserve the world. They are the willpower and the potency in it, but they will not succumb to your desires if they don't want to go that way. If they don't want to help you. If they don't want to allow you to be their devotee, either Odin or Ogou Feray. Now, the last point I'd like to go over is for Odin offers himself to himself on a tree. Now, for Odin offering himself to himself, this is something we do individually as human beings, as a sentient race. We and humanity is one race. Any other ideas about race, about being different races in humanity, that's all bullshit. It doesn't make any sense, and we're not even as different as different breeds of dog. We're literally the same. Race is an illusion. Race is a lie. But people use race in society and act like it exists, but it doesn't exist. But back to the point. Odin offers himself to himself on a tree. We have to, as individuals, offer the lesser parts of ourselves to our higher selves on the tree of the spine in order to develop. We have to offer our ego to our soul and allow the ego to die in order to develop as a soul that is founded in itself and not founded in the material that the ego is founded in. To offer ourselves to ourselves means to offer our small self to our larger self. And it's a very also Hindu idea too, the small self to the larger self. And the small self is momentary. It's involved in time. It's involved in a single incarnation, a single life. Whereas our soul is that which exists in many lives and many reincarnations, which is, honestly, reincarnation is also an idea in Asatru and in many northern shamanistic traditions, if you look hard enough, and also if you look past the basic dogma that some people have tried to, even in Reconstructionism, have tried to enforce recently. But we go down to Ogou Feray, and cannot be made to do anything. Of course, we went over that. And offering to him can be made at a tree as a masculine symbol. Now, many devotees of Ogou Feray offer things to him at a tree. And a tree, just like with Odin, and also with Ogou Feray, is a masculine symbol in the earth. It's a phallus protruding from the earth and joined with it. That makes it basically a spiritually phallic symbol. And Ogou Feray is very masculine, and this is why you can offer things to him at a tree on top of a hill, because, and very similar with Odin, a tree on top of a hill is very close to the kind of place Odin would most meet with you. But for Ogou Feray, a tree on top of a hill, you can offer him iron that has been shaped into blades and into nails. You can offer him blood there, especially your own blood. That's the most potent for an offering. You can offer to him your efforts as a carpenter in woodworking. But at this basically spiritual phallic symbol of a tree on a hill, you can offer Ogou Feray these things, and he will make you a warrior, not just in hand-to-hand combat type situations. So that's the lesser warrior that's made through gods or spirits like this, but a warrior within yourself. Go to war with your lesser aspects. Go to war with your flaws, and go to war with what you have been in favor of what you can be. Become a warrior for what you can be, against what has been forced upon you, and your past developments, because they will only hold you back. Everything that you've done until now will hold you back unless you are able to move forward. Every person that has influenced you and still influences you to be what you were will only hold you back, and you won't be able to move forward. So go to war with who you were, go to war with other people's ideas of who you are, and advance forward to become a warrior. And this is true for both the Odinic path and relationship with Ogou Feray. But we're reaching an end here as far as the conversation goes. Odin and Ogou Feray are very similar in their warrior-like encouragements and their warrior-like manifestations in our lives and in reality itself, the fabric of reality. So feel free to comment if you found any of this interesting. Give me that thumbs up down there, that like. And I really hope that this has helped all of you in some way. Helped you see a little bit about how warriors can come in different varieties, but still be very similar in many traditions. Thank you very much for watching.